There's a lot of magic in film. From the moment between action and cut, a world is created. But what else lingers behind the marker? The Misfits was a film filled with potential, promise, and involved a cast of A-list stars. Unfortunately, it was a film filled with setbacks and bad luck. No one knew that this film would go down in Hollywood lore as a cursed production. Did the film cause the death of Marilyn Monroe, Clark Gable, and Montgomery Clift? Was this film cursed, or just hellishly unlucky? We talk about this and much more on Episode 8, The Casting Curse of the Misfits and its paranormal aftermath. So actors, take your places. Roll sound. Action. Hey guys, welcome back to Hollyweird Paranormal. We're your hosts, Tammy Merhab Chavez.
Hello, I'm Bryce Mitchell-Williams.
Welcome back.
Yay!
So guys, we're going to be talking about some cursed movies here.
Yes.
But there's one specific one that was extremely crazy, and that is The Misfits.
Yes.
And it's so unique with this film because it had three very, 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 very large stars. You had Monroe, Clark Gable, and Montgomery Clift.
Those old so-and-sos.
I know. So we'll definitely be talking about like the drama, the tea, and the curse of this film set.
Yes.
Was this, a casting curse? And pretty much also go into the paranormal aftermath. What happened after the passing of these stars?
Yes.
So we'll definitely jump into that. But other than that, Bryce, how's your week going so far?
It's been going really well.
It has?
Yeah, I feel good. It's the end of February. Can't believe,
I
as
know.
always,
I know.
the year, no matter what month it is, I'm always like, what's happening? Why is this year like speeding along?
I know. It's been insane. It's been going so fast. By tomorrow will be the end of March.
Which is insane.
Scary.
And by then it'll be a balmy 95 and we'll be sweating to death.
I know. It's been so cold here.
I'm like, please just stay. Like, let me just have my heater on for one more day.
We don't have enough sweaters
I know.
for this California weather because it's so indecisive. It's like one day it's 95 and the next day it's like 55.
How do you dress for that?
I know Birkenstock sweaters and
Yes. We look disgusting.
we do.
That's fine.
We look a mess.
What else?
No, but this weather has just been even more, cold than usual. Like last night it was 35.
I know. I mean, my blood has definitely thinned since I've moved from the Midwest. Like when I was in school, I would go to class in like a sweatshirt, jeans, like it was fine. Now if it dips below like 60, I'm ready to like rip the wood out of the wall and like start a fire to save us from the cold. Like it's ridiculous how weak I've gotten, but it's what LA does to you.
It does.
You get tough in some ways and you become a huge baby in other ways.
I agree. I agree. So, are you ready to jump into this movie?
I'm very ready.
All right, guys. So, let's talk about The Misfits. I'm sure some of you probably have never heard of this film because this was in the 60s. It was in the early 60s. And if you're a huge film buff, then you're pretty much set.
Yeah.
But here we go. We're just going to talk about the movie, what this movie was about, the onset drama, was there a curse, and the deaths that soon followed. And it's very unusual with the way that these deaths occurred. Now, these were either, natural deaths,
Sure.
or they were premeditated, some claim. However, was this movie the cause of these actors' deaths? And then we'll go into the paranormal aftermath of what happened with these A-list stars after death. So first off, the movie. The Misfits was a memorable film that was released in the 60s, and don't confuse it with the 1980s animated girl rival band in Jem and the Holograms, please, or the horror punk band The Misfits. FYI, the film is a Western film, and it was a very unique Western film. But the director was John Huston, and if you are a film buff, he directed The Maltese Falcon, The African Queen, and Fat City. Screenplay is Arthur Miller, and if you're a dramaturg, you know who he is, or if you were asleep all throughout your high school English courses. He is a memorable American playwright, guys, who was responsible for writing amazing plays such as The Crucible, A View from the Bridge, and Death of a Salesman. He was also married to Marilyn Monroe for 5 years. Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, Montgomery Clift were the trifecta cast of the film. They're primarily the three main stars of this movie. So Clark Gable, guys, just in little cliff notes about all three of these people. Clark Gable, born February 1st, 1901 in Ohio. So he's an Ohioan.
Living the dream.
I know. Clark Gable initially had a hard time getting Hollywood roles due to his big ears. In my opinion, he kind of looked like he was related to Gomez Addams.
He does. He totally does.
But he looked like the cuter version, like of Gomez, or maybe he was like the cuter brother of Gomez. But he reminds me so much of Gomez Addams. So after signing the MGM contract, he was cast with stars like Greta Garbo and Joan Crawford, and his popularity soared. He hit box office gold such as with films such as It Happened One Night and Gone with the Wind. And his final film was The Misfits. So Marilyn Monroe, guys, if you do not know who Marilyn Monroe is.
Who's that?
Who's that? Was she brunette?
She sounds familiar.
I know. Marilyn Monroe was an actress who was born Norma Jean Mortensen in June 1st, 1926. She is an LA native, and during her all too brief life, Marilyn Monroe overcame with difficult childhood to become one of the world's biggest and most enduring sex symbols. She was known as the blonde bombshell, and during her career, Monroe's films grossed more than $200 million. Monroe died of a drug overdose. I put that with finger quotes on August 5th, 1962, at the age of 36.
Ugh,
However,
so
I know there's some people that claim that whole death was a conspiracy. It was a setup.
Oh, man.
And that's another episode.
Yeah, I was saying, we're going to have to dip our toes in the Maryland pool. Yeah.
Dipping our toes very soon.
That is some
That
juicy...
is a huge story.
I mean, it encompasses Hollywood lore and American history lore and
everything.
Just everything. It's everything.
And haunted lore.
Yeah,
we still see Homegirl around here. She never left.
Juicy piece of the pie. I love it.
I know. Montgomery Clift, one of Hollywood's first method actors. He made his film debut in Howard Hawks' 1948 Western Red River. Clift co-starred with Elizabeth Taylor in A Place in the Sun, Raintree County, and Suddenly Last Summer. A near-fatal auto accident in 1957 changed his looks and sent him into a drug and alcohol addiction. Clift died in 1966 of a heart attack as well. So you have three of these stars, big stars, but they're all entering this film bursting at the seams. So the film was released in 1961. It costed $4.1 million to shoot it. And it was shot in 5 areas of Nevada and partially in Los Angeles, California. And Bryce, you have details on the movie, what it was about, the plot?
Yes, I do. So for anyone who hasn't seen this film, it is a little bit of a journey. You really have to go with it. It's long and convoluted and very stylized.
Yes.
But it really is one of the first films where the actors are by and large employing the method, which if you aren't super familiar with acting terms is basically the idea, if you think of modern day, like a Sean Penn or any of these actors who really live the character when they talk about that, that's that foundation is the method that they're referring to, of really not just being the character while the film is rolling or while you're on stage, but embodying and living and breathing that character. And this is one of the first films where all of the major stars are employing the use of the method. Right. So because of that, it at the time, ironically, was not that successful. Even with all the star power, Arthur Miller writing it, he was always a box office hit. And, you have Gable and Monroe and Clift, and they're guaranteed box office hits. And this movie is kind of not a success right away.
No.
Which is so crazy. So all that to say, basically, it sort of is a film that explores this group of people, and these two women are celebrating or trying to get away after Marilyn Monroe's character finalizes her very hasty divorce. So she's divorced and she just needs to like get out of town. They go to this like small town, like little cowboy town, and they meet Clark Gable and Montgomery Clift. And they're cowboys, for lack of a better term. And Clark Gable's character also just went through a divorce. So already it's like, ooh, there's chemistry. And so they go back to this home with them and kind of do a little, I don't want to say like playhouse, but really like start establishing a camaraderie in this group and like setting up a life, even though they've just met. You see,
sorry for the chopper, guys.
Just a war zone out here. And so, you know, it's this unfinished home because Clark Gable's wife left and Montgomery Clift is a widower. So they just like never finished this home. So once the women are there, they start like bringing it alive again. They like plant a garden and all these things. And so one of the other like more minor characters tells Clark Gable like, well, we could buy these wild or like capture these wild mustangs, and this becomes sort of the central plot is we're going to get these mustangs and we'll be able to sell them and make a lot of money essentially. And so it then becomes this whole thing where initially they think they'll be selling them to like race or like there'll be race horses or like thoroughbreds, that kind of thing.
That's what you get in the very beginning, and then it becomes a little more
it gets a little
dark.
More insidious when you realize, oh, they'll actually be sold either to make glue or, and again, this is the 60s, like dog food. And so it creates a divide in the group, and the women, especially Marilyn Monroe's character, you know, her whole thing is I can never love a killer, and she's really begging him essentially to like not do this. So they end up capturing the horses, spoilers, and you know, she's trying to get him to change his mind. And Clark Gable's character is sort of like set in his ways. She's offering to pay for them, and he's like offended by that. And the Montgomery Clift character, he like keeps going, and finally Clark Gable gives in. I know this is such a like roaming description, but this really is how the movie is, where it's just like constant debating over these horses essentially. So it kind of does jump around a lot. And eventually, even though Clark Gable has agreed and Marilyn Monroe has convinced him, there's like this rift between them, and Montgomery Clift's character isn't on board. And so Clark Gable releases the horses, and Montgomery Clift's character goes and captures one, like the stallion essentially, by himself. And it's like this super iconic scene. He's like wrestling this horse to the ground with this like rope tire, and like Marilyn Monroe is like crying, and he like catches it, and it's like kind of this violent scene we were just talking. It's like, oh man, is that horse okay? So like,
I know,
because it's so
is Clark Gable okay? Because he was doing his stunts,
which
like,
I'm gonna talk about. Like it's so crazy,
intense.
But he's like wrestling it, and like finally he like gets it, and it's like subdued, and she's like crying, and then he like lets it go, and he like turns around. It's like this epic scene. He's like, well, I don't want anyone making my choice for me. Like I decided this for myself. And it's like this final stand of this like aging cowboy kind of. And they end up like being reconciled, and like, you know, it all ends like pretty happily. They like drive off into the sunset together, like but having experienced this like deep rift over like a difference of ideals.
He had a breakthrough.
He did.
He let go of that Mustang. It's like, you gotta let shit go.
You've got to let it go. So, and again, it is like a very long-paced movie, in my opinion. But it's like lauded as this seminal classic now because they were using like what we would consider better acting techniques that like hold up to modern scrutiny. And so that's the thing. Many times if you're watching like older classic films, you kind of get that transatlantic like, oh, and it's very stylized. And it's these beautiful stories, but not super believable necessarily. And they're like crying on the duvet, and you know, it's all of this chaos. And this was one of the first movies that like really bucked against that trend.
It did.
And because of that, it is now on many like top 100 films of all time, like top like important films of history, and like all of these things.
I love Marilyn Monroe's acting.
And both of them
in this film, I really did.
Yeah.
And I know she had a lot of trouble trying to really focus on it, but when you hear her in certain scenes, you could really, like you said, method, you could really hear her pain.
And that's the thing. They both went on record during like the press tour. Like at the time, like press would come and they would like do interviews in between takes, which is crazy to me. That would never happen now, I feel like, but okay. And they both, Clark Gable and Marilyn Monroe, both said this is the best work we've ever done. Like,
and it is. I mean,
easily.
100%.
I think Clark Gable even said, like, I'm proud of two things in my life, and it's this film and Gone with the Wind.
Of course.
Which is insane. Like, if you think about the historical context of Gone with the Wind, and, like, again, what it did for the film industry.
Yeah.
And, like, what it did for, like, equality and all of these things that, like, historically it meant, for him to, like, associate this film with that is, like, it shows how
very
seriously
monumental.
they took it. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I noticed about the film, which really intrigued me, like, after, like, watching it from beginning till end, I had to break in the middle, of course.
You really do.
I was like, oh, I need my social media right now. Sorry. But, I mean, it was a powerful message. It was a message about people trying to connect with one another, but then again, they're afraid to connect. And I feel like that is that echoes like today. Like we all want to connect with one another, but we're still afraid.
Totally.
You know, we have a great connection with our social media, with our phones, but to have that human connection, that's something we're still afraid of.
Well, we're more and less connected than any other generation in the history of mankind, and it's so crazy.
And that's another podcast right there.
That really is. Speaking of, yes. And that's so crazy because, you know, you're talking about like connection, but this film was so fraught with difficulty. So
raw.
It really was. I mean, you know, we get the benefit of seeing like the end product 50 plus years in the future. At the time, like I said, it was not well received. It had such a delayed shooting schedule and like all of these like problems during the filming.
Oh yeah,
just
that
crazy.
Is a segue right there. We're segueing away.
See how smooth it is? Ooh.
I know. Wow, just like butter. You cut out dairy. I can't say that.
I know. Ugh, it's so sad.
Dark chocolate?
Sure. Great.
Okay.
Weeps and weeping into the microphone.
I was making Bryce coffee right when he came in before we recorded, and I was asking him, do you want a latte? I cut out dairy.
I know. I'm so LA now. I can't do dairy.
I know. I want my coffee black.
Yeah.
It's like, do you now?
Yep. Living the dream.
All right, guys. So we're going to go into this on-set drama.
So much.
Get your teacups out because we're going to spill some tea. So you have this crazy film, crazy schedule. You have one of the best directors shooting this film, one of America's top playwrights writing this film, who is, by the way, married to the main starlet, Marilyn Monroe. And then again, you also have three very, very well-known performers, Monroe, Clift, and Gable, who are the leads. And they are already coming in with a shit ton of baggage.
Well, and that's the thing. On paper, like I said earlier, it's just like, this should have been a blockbuster knockout. Like, there's no reason on paper why this film shouldn't have done well. Because it's like huge star power, huge writing power, huge directing power, a good story, like all those things, and then just like, like just fizzled out because there's just so much chaos swirling every day.
What do we see this with in comparison with movies today? Like the Titanic, you think? No, because
I don't know. Yeah, like,
the acting in the Titanic was horrific.
Controversial.
Some of it was like, really?
Yeah. Oh, are you drowning? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too, is I wonder like how much of this gets covered up so that like what we eventually hear is still like not as bad as it actually was. Because like as I was going through this, so much of it was like, well, that seems pretty tame. Like, I bet you this is, not to like re-quote Titanic, but I bet you this is the tip of the iceberg. Like, I know, I couldn't avoid it. So bad. But you know what I mean? So the first thing, like the sort of uncontrollable one is that, as you were saying, shooting in Nevada in the summer.
Yes.
108-degree heat every day.
Yes.
Like,
insane.
who thought that was a good idea?
I know. They're like, let's go to shoot this film in Nevada in July. Perfect.
It's amazing.
Dude, you're smart right there. Yeah. Let's do that. Perfect.
I love it.
Yeah. It was the whole weather shit was insane. Like, the terrain that they were shooting in was also very dangerous as well. Because they shot in 5 different locations in Nevada.
That sounds like a nightmare.
I know. And they shot another part of the film in Los Angeles. Okay, it was okay. But Nevada was a little torrential because of the weather, just the terrain, and just, you know, just all these elements of nature were just kind of against them.
Well, and it's so funny, too, because, like, especially when I was in school, there was, like, this sort of mythos around, like, being on set, quote unquote. And you kind of don't realize until you're actually on set, especially your first time.
Yeah.
But there is, like, this sort of other presence of the, quote, set that is, like, a full character at play. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And like the energy on set can affect you. So like, you know,
yeah, I
it's
could totally vouch for that.
100%. And you know, we've all been in those situations where it's like something's not vibing and I can't really figure it out.
Yeah.
And then like you get back home and you're like, man, that was just a bad set. And you like have this like weird realization. So it is kind of silly. Like I'm sure there are people like, really, like this film didn't do well because of the weather, but low key, like that matters.
That did it does. Trust me, it does.
And it was affecting, you were saying earlier, like it was affecting the health of the horses. It was affecting the health of the actors. It was affecting the health of the crew.
Oh yeah, and people were, you know, pretty much suffering from dehydration. They were getting sick. You had also a couple of these stars that were dealing with other shit too, and they were not grounded. It's just that a lot of the people that worked on this film were not grounded. So the first one that we can touch on is Marilyn Monroe.
Let's just get the big one out of the way.
Let's get the big fish out of the way. So to open, Marilyn Monroe is already married to Arthur Miller, and the marriage is already on the cusp of deteriorating.
Right.
So in the very beginning, Marilyn was terrified at the thought of working with Clerk Gable. So as a child growing up in foster homes with her single mother, she slept with a picture of Gable under her pillow every night and fantasized that he was her father. It was really sad. And then the night before their first scene together, she couldn't sleep. And so she goes to her, you know, her little nightstand drawer and pulls out her Nebudol because she was already, you know, addicted to the stuff.
Yeah.
Her sleeping pills. She took a large dose of it, and as a result of that, she, you know, was already 2 hours late to set on the first day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the sort of storm of chaos around her entire adult life, I think is really crystallized in this experience because it's all of these things. Her marriage, honestly, because of this film. So her and Arthur Miller had a lot of conflict because apparently he was like constantly rewriting the script, and she like disagreed with the way he was portraying her character and upset with the short amount of time he would like rewrite entire scenes the night before. And she was such a head case. There's like this beautiful documentary talking about her time working with Lee Strasberg in New York, and she like is a very serious actor. She like takes the craft very seriously, which I think is something that we kind of forget because you see this like persona of like the bombshell, but like she genuinely cared about her performances, which is so crazy. And so for that like neurotic energy to be like thrown off by like constant rewrites that she didn't agree with, it completely derailed her to the point that, like you were saying, she's not showing up on time. She's like notoriously missing her lines during the takes, and then their marriage is crumbling during the shoot.
She just didn't know how to pretty much handle everything, and it wasn't because she was doing this on purpose. It was because it was fear. It was fear and, you know, just how her character was going to be portrayed in this film, and fear of working with Gable. Oh my God, he's not going to take me seriously. And, you know, how to work with her husband. As shooting progressed, Monroe became increasingly dependent upon her Nembutal. So she had prescriptions flown in every other day by her Los Angeles doctors and received additional medication from local doctors. She was taking 3 times the normal dosage of her sleeping aid, Nembutal, and the pills left her disoriented, unsteady on her feet, and at times incoherent. They also led to wild mood swings and rashes. A lot of these mood swings were recorded by people on set because she lashed out on Arthur. Arthur was, a lot of people said, no, he treated her like shit. It was actually the other way around on set, because there were times where she would yell at him. They would argue in front of everyone on set. Yeah, it
was very public.
And he was just like trying to keep his cool with her. So her marriage to Arthur Miller was already like deteriorating in front of everyone. Many witnessed, her lash outs on Miller, even pushing him away physically at times. And he just had enough and ended up having an affair with a designer on the set.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so
I'm sure that'll make it better.
Oh yeah, like it makes everything better. And of course, like Monroe found out.
Of course.
And it just didn't help anything.
Right. And also, like, here's the thing. If you're like the problem child in a room full of problem children, as we'll talk about the other members of this like production company and cast and all of it, like she really was like deteriorating so quickly in front of people's eyes. And like even to the point that later people were saying like, we could see her and we knew that she couldn't be helped. Like we knew that she was so far gone at this point.
Yes.
That like anything we were doing to try and help her was not going to intervene, to the point that they actually hospitalize her for 2 weeks to detox her because she's so bad. So right there, that's the first delay. Like we're going to start splicing in all the delays that this production went through because it's obscene. Like it blows my mind how long it took to film this movie. And this is one of the first reasons, is because the star has to be hospitalized for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Already right there, a delay.
So sad.
No wonder this film cost $4.1 million, because
in 1960s money, that is insane.
It is crazy. And I mean, working on professional film sets, I've worked on many, and time is money. It's so true. Time is money. If they lose 30 minutes, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there have been times on set, because I primarily work on horror sets.
Right.
And it's even more difficult when you work on a horror set, because you're dealing with blood, you're dealing with makeup, you're dealing with having to do a retake. Well, do we have an extra costume?
Yep.
We need a group of makeup people to come in and clean the blood on the floor off this actor. It's insane. And there are times where we do go way over to the point where we have to have a second dinner. And at times it can result in the production getting fined. Yeah, I've been in that position too. And we've had, I think in one set, we had a problem with an actress who was just constantly late. It caused us to shift like the schedule of our shoot.
Oh my God.
So, there are days where we had to shoot out of sequence.
Oh God.
Which was fucked up.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we had the set up for this scene, but because she's an hour and a half late, we're gonna have to move over to this scene in this other house.
Oh God.
So it was a bitch to move all that equipment to the next place.
Yeah.
It was horrendous, and it did cost us a lot of time and money.
Right.
So I can understand why.
Any young baby fledgling actors listening to this podcast, do not do that.
Do not do that. You want to get hired.
You are not Marilyn Monroe. They will not wait for you. They will fire you on the spot.
They will.
Like, no.
Yeah, they don't. They're not about that. I know that they stopped working with that actress afterwards.
100%.
Yeah.
There's no way. So that's the thing, is that, right, why did all these people put up with like her seeming difficulty? It's because they were in that boat right there with her.
Yeah.
Let's just jump right into beautiful John Huston. So the director is also struggling with alcoholism.
Another one.
Struggling with drug addiction.
Another one.
And he adds the little trifecta. He has a serious and very public gambling problem.
Yes.
Which is so ridiculous to me.
Which is this is his dream cast because Clark Gable is also a big gambler.
It's ridiculous. And he would like come back. And so here we go. Second reason. He is having the production cover his gambling debts, which is so can you imagine the poor PA on this project? They must have wanted to kill themselves. Just like lay down in the desert, let the eagles take me. Like I can't do this. Let the vultures
take me. They literally need receipts. Well, where did $1.3 million go?
He would come back and like brag about
It went to water. For what?
Yeah, blink. But he would brag about how much money he had lost gambling.
Yes.
Which is so they had to go back to the studio and ask for more money.
Imagine him sending his his PA to ask for that.
That poor.
Hey, can you just go and like low key ask for another $1.5 million? Come on.
And it got to the point, and so here's like the thing that I find so ironic is that John Huston is the one who said he knew she couldn't be saved. So this very drunk, very pill dependent, gambling addicted man is seeing the decay of Marilyn Monroe. I just find that so crazy that like this entire cast is in the same boat. And like you recognize the demons of yourself in other people. Exactly.
There are even points where he would pass out during scenes. Like he'll say action and they'll go into the scene. And there was this one account of there was this big scene between Gable and Clift, and Huston passes out in the middle of the scene.
Many reshoots because of his drunkenness. Like, it's crazy to me.
We need to hire another PA to wake up Huston.
Oh my God, I would die.
Who volunteers as tribute?
You just get a cattle prod at that point. Like, no.
Crickets.
No. Oh my God. So crazy. So again, that's more delays, more budget, like constant reshoots, plus the rewrites with Arthur Miller. Like, it's just this ball of delay now at this point. They're over budget. They're so behind on shooting schedule.
Oh, yeah.
So now at this point, it's like through the entire summer. They're like in the August of Nevada. No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No.
No bueno.
No.
So another one was also, I love him too, Montgomery Clift.
Oh, I know.
He was also, aside from the elements of like weather and the terrain and the director and Monroe, Montgomery Clift was also battling drug and alcohol abuse during production, often causing Gable to lose his patience and his temper. Clift was also dealing with Huston calling him out for being in the closet. And there were some points where Huston would call him out on set. And they worked on another film together called Freud, which was a huge breakout hit for Clift because he did an amazing job.
Right.
But it was then where, there are already these like kind of like little rumors going around that he might be stuck in the closet. And that was something that Clift was battling. It was the fact that he was closeted. And
well, especially in the 60s, that is a career killer.
Yes. And the reason why he was often addicted to drugs and alcohol is because he had that nasty car accident back in the 50s that left him partially deformed. It knocked out all of his teeth. It broke a sinus bridge. It left him horrifically in pain. He had to get several surgeries. The accident was so bad that his then girlfriend, Elizabeth Taylor, rushed to his side and he couldn't breathe because he was choking on his own teeth. She had to open his mouth and physically grab teeth out of his throat so he could breathe.
Well, who hasn't been there? Come on.
I know.
That's insane.
It's Hollywood.
It's Hollywood.
That's love. So he was still dealing with pain from that. And right after that accident, he was still kind of getting... He was having problems trying to get casted again and trying to get better. But
sorry, keep going.
Oh, no, but he was, still in luck because, he was amazing as an actor.
Well, and that's the thing is that so much of... So Marilyn Monroe was the first person to be casted, obviously, because Arthur Miller, like, low-key wrote this to showcase her. And then as it deteriorated, it kind of became something different. But she was the first person casted and, like, requested Montgomery Clift and said, like, he's perfect for this role. Like, I want him. And then later went on... not on record, but it was, like, allegedly said, like, I've never witnessed someone who was, like, worse off than I was.
Yes.
So, again, all in the same boat. She, like, brought him onto this project, and then it's like, oh, like, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Oh, I don't know. But Houston wanted him because he worked well with Monroe, too.
Right.
He was, in some way, he was like the Monroe whisperer.
Yes.
Like, he got through to her at times.
And one of the things, going back to the method, which I know is such, like, boring actor jargon, so just bear with me.
Method.
But so Clark Gable is actually the only actor of A, the 3, and B, the, like, top 10 build who's not using the method. He said that it was like a foreign religion to him.
Yeah.
But the rest of them really invested in that. And again, with Montgomery Clift and Marilyn Monroe, he was so integral to keeping her kind of grounded and calm because she was such a basket case during this entire filming. Mm-hmm. And I think his presence specifically, a couple other people too, but like his presence specifically, and because of that, he like garnered this weird respect from Clark Gable where they weren't like friends and they kind of like were snippy with each other.
Yeah.
But they respected each other's work so much that like even though Clark Gable like kind of publicly would like talk not great about him, he would be on set when he didn't have to be to watch Montgomery Clift because he respected his talent so much.
Yes.
Which is like kind of sweet, kind of twisted, I guess. Like you're not nice
like,
to each other,
I feel
but
like he was like this fatherly figure to him in a way, you know? Kind of almost like a Bengali.
Yeah.
I want to see you do well, but I want you to fucking focus.
Right.
Because he would lose his cool on him at times.
Yes.
There are times where he would make Clift burst into tears.
Yes.
Because he was just, well, I mean, due to the fact that he was doing stunts, he was stressed out, he was often dehydrated.
Yes.
Like it affected him and it like his temper was just like on a short fuse right there.
Yes.
On a very, very short fuse. So that was another thing about Gable is that he insisted on doing many of his stunts. And a lot of these stunts were very, very strenuous to the point where they told him, look, we need to bring in Jack and Young to stand in for you in certain points just so you can rest, bro. Just so you can rest.
And he really fought them on it.
He really fought. He was like, no. And I think it's because, you know, he was already nearing the age of 60. He insisted on doing many of his stunts. He was, you know, a man's man. He's like, no, I'm going to do this myself. He was a bit ornery in that aspect.
And I think he felt like he had to prove something too.
Yes.
Because so many people were telling him like, this isn't a good part for you. You're not really right.
He's not the type of person that's going to take no for an answer.
Absolutely not.
He's like, do you know who I am? Yeah, I'm going to do these stunts. And you're holding on to some sort of legacy right there as an actor. Like, I don't want to be casted in these roles where I'm just like the old man. I want to be this very strong, you know, man's man in this film. I'm a cowboy. This is what I'm going to do. I need to, you know, show my strength.
Right.
And he just couldn't allow that, you know? He couldn't allow someone to stand in, like a younger guy to stand in for him. No, absolutely not. So Gable insisted on doing much of his stunts, including the fall off of a car on the pavement outside of the bar. There was a scene where he falls off a car.
That's crazy.
And, you know, he almost injures himself, sprinting 100 yards after the truck in the desert, and most notoriously being dragged across the dry desert lake bed at more than 30 miles per hour. So there's a scene where he's being dragged by one of the mustangs in the desert. Oof. And he is being dragged at 30 miles per hour. That's all
insane.
Him. That is him in the sweltering heat with this ginormous and powerful animal. What else? Some critics believe that this physical exertion might have contributed to his heart attack and death, which was just days after filming ended. So if you've ever seen the movie towards the end, it was a ginormous scene of them. Like you said earlier, they're wrestling with these horses.
Yeah.
He's, you know, being dragged, being like whipped around like a rag doll.
Yeah.
And they feel like this was the scene that led up to his heart attack.
Well, and he is like quoted as saying like, I'm glad this film is over. It nearly gave me a heart attack.
Oh, I know. You just jinxed yourself.
You did it. Yeah. And so like, I think it was like 2 days later he has a heart attack, and then 10 days later he's dead. Yeah. So like 12 days after they wrapped this like very demanding shoot,
he's done, which leads us to another. You want to say it?
No, what?
Segue.
Oh, segue. I thought you were gonna say sex scene, and I was like, is it? I don't know where my mind
Which
went.
one were you watching?
Is this not the Triple X version? The Misfits? Oh, okay. Podcast canceled. No. That's hilarious. Another segue, yes.
God, we're not finishing each other's sandwiches.
Sandwiches, yes. Which we were so in sync this morning.
I know.
It faded with my coffee.
I know. It's like you're losing your ESPN, bro.
I really did it. So one really quick thing I want to talk about, and then let's talk about the aftermath, because it's so crazy.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that this film was like a little bit of like a lightning bolt idea when you were like, well, what could we do?
Yeah.
Was because of the scene between Clark Gable and Marilyn Monroe. And that's like the scene that like stuck with me. Ooh. And like kind of what like jarred me, because like, oh, right. Well, it's like their final... It's like one of the last scenes of the film, and it's one of the first scenes that's shot continuously. It's the longest scene in John Huston's cinematography, if you will, like history. It's this 6-minute long scene. Low key, everybody thinks that the two of them, who are like notoriously bad at learning their lines, will not be able to do it. And it's like this zenith of the movie because they like crush it. And so it's this like beautiful kind of swan song for both of them, in that like they did all the things, like no non-essential people on set, no one can be in Marilyn's eye line. They like really were both so concerned about it that it ended up like making this like amazing performance, because they just did that very basic thing of like listening and putting the energy and focus on your partner.
Yeah.
And so because of like all the craziness, like, right, that's the thing, is that this movie is plagued by the lows, but then there's these like really historical highs at the same time. And I think all of that energy and like the schism between the highs and the lows really, in the segue, as we do, is like one of the contributing factors, is like that just constant up and down is going to wear on you no matter what. I mean, I just can't imagine the elation they must have felt. I think I was reading that they got it in like 6 takes, which is nothing.
That is nothing.
And like 2 of them were like perfect takes. Like, that's crazy, especially for people who are like completely unreliable. And so you like end, and it's this like complete high, like even with all the things that have gone wrong, like we ended it on a high note.
Yeah.
And then Clark Gable dies.
I know.
And then it just sort of starts this domino of like this movie popping up in the cast and crew's life, personally and professionally, and like now all of the like after effects of this film.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It is. It is, and you're right, because you know, when you're acting, and you know this too, there's a lot of things that you have to dig deep inside of you. And when you're taking take after take after take, it's like, oh, I have to go through this again. I got to dig deeper.
You, yeah.
And it emotionally drains you. And I mean, I've seen it too on set. I remember, oh my God, we were doing, I think this was a grad movie. This is when I was in grad school, but we were doing this horror film, and there's a scene where this girl gets raped, and it was a closed set. But I just remembered like the producer telling us, hey, give them their space. It was a really, really, really intense scene, and we had to do several takes of it.
Of course. I
had to go in, check costume, do last looks. You know, makeup girl had to like wipe the girl's tears. She had to like repowder her. Like, they had to do it all over again, retake after retake, and it was really intense. There was a point where when they finally got the scene, the girl had to like be alone in her little trailer. Like, she's I just need to just, you know, decompress and peace out for a bit. And they're like, yeah, you know, we totally understand. We're going to go into this next scene with these other guys. So it was like, don't bother her for the next couple of hours.
Yeah. Oh my God, I can imagine.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is very emotionally exhausting. Oof. And I could tell, like, you know, that's what they went throughout this whole scene, but they got it, you know, done in 6 takes.
Which is crazy. Good for them, I guess.
Well, they already had a great synergy together, too.
Yeah, they really did. And I think, again, that just goes back to, like, you were saying, that fatherly energy and, like, her sort of reverence for him translates into, like, beautiful on-screen chemistry.
Yeah.
So good.
I know. And it gets sadder because we talk about the deaths.
Yes.
So if you guys have are following us on Instagram, I posted like the picture of the movie poster.
Yes.
And it's eerily ironic to the sequence of their deaths.
Like chronological.
It's chronological order. You see Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, and Montgomery Clift looking out, and they're happy. And I put like the dates of their death.
Yeah.
It's 1960, 1962, 1966. Clift is the last one to pass. So Clark Gable dies November 16th, 1960 in Los Angeles. Marilyn Monroe follows after 2 years, August 5th, 1962, in her Brentwood home. Montgomery Clift dies July 23rd, 1966 in New York City. So we start off with Clark Gable's death. So Clay Williams, who was Gable's last wife, said after his death that she was sure that the problems with the production of the Misfits was a strong contributor to Gable's death. So on November 6, 1960, after completing the last movie, The Misfits, Clark Gable suffered chest pains and was transported to Presbyterian Hospital in LA, where he was diagnosed as having suffered a coronary thrombosis. And after 2 days in the hospital, he received over 5,000 well wishes from his fans. He appeared to be doing better, and he was pretty much taken off of life support. But on November 16th, he suffered another heart attack that immediately killed him.
Oh my God.
Like, he got better, and then he just had this attack, and then it just knocked him out. Yeah, it was really, really sad. But a lot of people claim that, after his death, he was, reunited with his wife, Carolyn Lombard.
Oh, right.
So he was reunited with Lombard, and that was it. But it was a big shock to the Hollywood community, to his fans, and especially Marilyn Monroe.
And also, one of the things, again, they're so intertwined in each other's lives at this point, but his publicist and his wife, like, low-key blame her for his death. And in turn, she takes that on. I think she's so unstable at this point.
Already,
that she isn't able to receive criticism and not internalize it. And so you have these two very vocal people full on blaming her. And here's the thing. Excuse me. He had drank all of his life and had like just recently become sober, like within the year. He was a heavy smoker, as everybody was. It's the 60s.
Yeah.
He had chest pains the entire year leading up to this that most likely were mini heart attacks. That's undiagnosed, but just realistically, that's probably what they were.
Yeah.
He was 59. In the film, he's portraying a 40-year-old. He's insisting on doing his own very physical stunts. And he has, all the same issues that basically every celebrity during this time period has with the alcohol and the pills and all of these things. He's in his 5th marriage, like all of these other outside stressors. And at the time during your grieving process, it's really easy to blame the last film he was in that was clearly such a chaotic mess, and the co-star who made it many times more chaotic because of her own issues.
Yeah.
But again, you never know the ripples that your words will have and how far those will reach. And she internalizes those things and does very much blame herself for his death.
Yeah, she takes it personally.
And thus begins her own spiral into more pills. She had been detoxed and like came back and finished the film. And it's really one like tiny little thing that we didn't mention is like really interesting. You can tell when she's back from the hospitalization in the film because all of her close-ups after that point are in such soft focus.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yes.
I noticed like even like the bags under her eyes are gone.
Because like she kind of looked rough.
Yeah.
I mean, still stunning.
No,
like,
there's some pictures of her where you're like, ooh.
But they did, and so they like really like did the best they could with like soft editing and all focus and all of that. But, her accepting the blame for his death re-spiralizes her into the pills, and her marriage is ended, and the alcohol, and the sleep dependency. And from there, it just goes downhill so quickly.
Yeah, especially for what like leads up to the final hours of her life. Because in 62, she, finalizes the divorce with Miller. So Marilyn Monroe on August 5th of 1962, was found dead in her bedroom of her Brentwood home by her psychiatrist, Ralph Greenson, after he was called by Monroe's housekeeper, Eunice Murray.
Oh.
And she was only 36 years old at the time of her death. Her death was ruled to be acute barbiturate poisoning by Dr. Thomas Negoci of Los Angeles County's coroner's office and was listed as probable suicide. Many detectives, including Jack Clemens, the first Los Angeles Police Department officer to arrive at the death scene, believed that she was murdered, that this was a setup. No murder charges were ever filed. The death of Marilyn Monroe since has become one of the events spawning the most conspiracy theories of all time. And that's a separate episode right there.
It really is.
Because
her whole life.
But, you know, they believe that it was a conspiracy, that it was because she had, you know, slept with the Kennedy brothers. Mm-hmm. So
who hasn't?
I know. And it's still like an open case for some people.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but a lot of people believe that it was a conspiracy. Her death was just a setup.
Oh, that makes me so sad.
It does. But I mean, who knows? She was battling a lot of demons too. Like her marriage to Miller just fizzled. Like she was being blamed for Gable's death by several individuals. And she was just already at her breaking point at this time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Montgomery Clift's death. So on July 22nd, which is very eerie, that's my birthday, 1966, Clift spent most of his hot summer day in his bedroom in his New York City townhouse located at 217 East 61st Street. He and his live-in personal secretary, Lorenzo James, had not spoken much of that day. So shortly before 1 a.m., James went up to say goodnight to Clift, who was still awake and sitting in his bed. James asked Clift if he needed anything, and Clift politely refused and then told James that he would stay up, you know, for another hour or two longer to read a book or watch television. So James then noted that the Misfits star was, the movie The Misfits was on television that night, airing as a late night movie, and he asked Clift if he wanted to watch it with him, and Clift is like, absolutely not, I'm so fucking done with this film. This was the last time Montgomery Clift spoke to anyone. So at 6:30 a.m. the next day, Clift was found dead. Death was ruled as a heart attack, and no foul play was suspected.
That is so creepy and crazy that film was on, that it was a heart attack, that it was like, ugh.
Here's my thing. They both had Clift. Was it Clift? Clift and I think it was a Houston too. Houston died eventually, like 30 years later, of a heart attack too. But they all had alcohol and drug problems,
100%.
you know, and stress. They were under a tremendous amount of stress. Clift and Gable were under heaps of stress because of this movie.
Right.
And because of other things that were also plaguing their lives. But I feel that Monroe, when she killed herself, supposedly if she did kill herself, that she would eventually die of a heart attack herself because she was addicted to alcohol. Sure. And she was also addicted to pills.
Yeah.
So,
your body just can't take that strain for decades and then just be fine.
Their bodies were under a lot of strain. That's a good way of pointing it out.
Yeah.
Clift and Gable put their bodies through a tremendous amount of strain, a tremendous amount of medication, alcohol. Because also Gable was a drinker too. He didn't seem like, and smoker. He didn't seem like he was taking good care of himself at all. So that could lead up to, you know, major health problems.
Yeah, and did. I mean, that's obviously, it's so sad.
It is. It's really sad. And I believe that he was 46 when he passed.
Wow.
He was in his mid-40s. Like,
so
he still
young.
didn't lead much of his life. Like, he had aspirations to write and to act more. And he, you know, wasn't able to finish that, which is really, really terrible. I know. So now we go into the juicier part.
Especially, well, I mean, right there, you just said it. Like, that sounds like a lot of unfinished business to me. Like,
exactly.
Wonder what that could lead to.
Let me push up my invisible glasses.
I know. My ghost specs.
So, guys, for all you paranerds out there, we talk about the paranormal aftermath.
I feel like everyone just breathed like a collective sigh. Finally, thank you. Get to it already. Sorry, we like talking.
All right, so the paranormal aftermath. What's so crazy is that Gable, Monroe, and Clift haunt the same hotel.
Oh.
They are all there in their afterlife. It's like they had its little reunion at the Hotel Roosevelt. So, of course, with these famous stars, especially Marilyn Monroe being an LA girl, they're still going to linger around.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Roosevelt Hotel is where all of the creme de la creme of Hollywood reside or would visit, during the 40s and 30s and 50s and 60s. But they are still revisiting or, never left their stay, at this hotel. So it's freaking crazy how this hotel price is like 15 minutes away from our work.
Oh, I know. I walk by it all the time. And
it's one of the most haunted hotels in Hollywood. Actually, in Los Angeles, as a matter of fact.
Totally.
It's really, really crazy. It's situated right on Hollywood Boulevard alongside the famous Walk of Fame and opposite of the Chinese Theater. So we start with our first apparition, Montgomery Clift.
Ooh.
So Montgomery Clift haunts this hotel in particular. So he haunts room 928. And
I'm booking our stay right now.
I know. I know. Go on Travelocity. Do it.
I love it.
Whilst he was making the film From Here to Eternity, he was known to stay in this room. He needed his privacy to learn his lines. So Montgomery lived here for a duration. He was making that film, and he liked to chill out with his trumpet. His trumpet is still heard playing to this day by the staff and many guests.
No.
So people will complain, hey, there's some rando playing his trumpet on the 9th floor.
No.
Yeah, it's insane. One guest who stayed in his room reported that when she was reading her book at night, she felt a tapping on her shoulder. Thinking it was her husband, she turned around to find him facing the other way, fast asleep. So people are being touched in this room. They feel a presence. His ghost is also seen pacing up and down the hall on the 9th floor, as he was seen before when he was alive, going over his lines. Sure. So his energy and his ghost is definitely felt and seen on the 9th floor and in room number 928.
Ugh.
I know. Isn't that insane?
For some reason, the music really creeps me out.
But here where it gets a little creepy.
Oh, great.
And I posted this on our Instagram too. And I'll put this link on our description page in iTunes and our blueberry.com webpage. In 2016, I remember driving to work listening to this because I love KCRW.
Yes.
KCRW released a story about an actor and writer, Craig Chester, who claimed to be followed by the ghost of Montgomery Clift. No. You have to listen to this episode, guys. It is insane. It brought me to tears.
Whoa.
It's so good. According to KCRW, a friend suggested Craig should visit a psychic. So Craig didn't believe in any of this paranormal stuff. And he figured, it shouldn't hurt to go visit a psychic. Then the psychic introduces him to someone who had been following Craig all of his life, Montgomery Clift, and the actor heartthrob from the 50s and 60s. So he goes to visit the psychic, and the psychic is like, dude, you have this hombre following you. You have this famous actor. God. And he is telling me that he wants to tell me that this is him. Like he's been behind, by your side this whole time. So at first Craig didn't believe it, but the coincidences piled up and eventually he couldn't deny it. So he realized that Clift had been gay throughout, his whole career in Hollywood. He's been closeted throughout his whole career. And he started to listen to the advice of this psychic. So he starts to develop this relationship with the psychic because the psychic would always call him every single day to deliver messages to Craig from Clift. Because Clift couldn't fully communicate to him. He wasn't too open, but he was able to communicate to Craig through the psychic. So the psychic tells him he has this message he's been trying to deliver to you for the longest. He wants you to write a film. He wants you to write a biopic of his life.
Whoa.
He writes the biopic, he writes the film, and it's pretty much this film that, you know, depicts his life and how he struggled with being gay in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And of course, Craig is also a very well-known, you know, star in the gay community. Mm-hmm. He was a star in Swoon, and he wrote the famous indie movie Adam and Steve.
Oh, wow.
So he writes this film, and he felt that throughout the whole writing process, like, he felt that Clift was with him, navigating him throughout this whole process. Wow. And after the film is done, Clift leaves. He leaves him. And Craig, you know, has a moment where he goes, you know, through this slightly depressed time because he's like, I never felt alone in my life after he left.
Wow.
Yeah. He's like, I felt so alone after. He's like, he felt it too. He felt like the air is a little lighter, like no one was with him.
Yeah.
But he was so thankful to write this story, to do this movie about Clift.
Wow.
It's an intense story, how he, you know, goes on and on about it. But guys, I highly recommend that you listen to it. I'll put the link in. I mean, there's one point where I was like trying to dry my tears going into work. I'm like, oh my God.
I love it. Oh my God.
So then we go into like the ghost of Marilyn Monroe haunting the Roosevelt. So Marilyn Monroe has been reported on many occasions by staff and guests at the Roosevelt Hotel. It's reported that her ghostly reflection is seen looking back at you from a full-length mirror that hangs in the hotel's lobby. And this mirror once hanged in Suite 1200, the very suite that Marilyn Monroe once occupied. Her apparition has also been reported to be seen dancing in the Blossom Ballroom of that hotel.
Wow.
Yes, so she haunts room number 1200 as well. People have seen, you know, weird lights, orbs. They feel like they've seen the face of a woman in that room. People have seen her, like a female face and figure in the mirror. And I've seen that mirror in that hotel. It's a little creepy.
Yeah, me too.
It's a little
The many
creepy.
times I've snuck into the Roosevelt.
I know. I used to do yoga there. Because Core Power would have like yoga and mimosas. And that place is like all done up. Mm-hmm. And it's really beautiful.
Oh, yeah. It's
like a different world in there. I agree. But you do feel in certain in certain parts of the hotel, like it is a time warp. Mm-hmm. It is like you're transported into the 40s.
And they've, I think, cultivated that.
Yeah.
But the air is like thicker in a way. You know what I mean?
I agree. There's like some points or some hallways in that hotel where it's a little creepy. It's a little dark.
Yeah. Oh, I would never stay there. I'm poor, but also I would never stay there. Like, no, absolutely not.
I know it's expensive. It's like I was looking at the rates of the rooms there. It was like between $250 to $329 a night. No, thank you. Mm-mm. No.
There's a Holiday Inn down the street. You'll be fine.
I'll be fine.
And you won't be haunted.
Well, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, well, that's true. Honestly,
in Hollywood, it's like, who knows?
Every block is haunted by something. It's ridiculous. We are not safe.
So people also claim that Clark Gable and his first wife, Carol Lombard, still reside in the hotel. So when Clark Gable and Carol Lombard were like alive, they would, you know, go and party in the ballroom. Mm-hmm. They would waltz around the ballroom. So people have claimed, or guests and staff have claimed, that they see them waltzing around the 12th floor of the Roosevelt. And they are mainly seen and felt in another area too, which is also the ballroom.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's insane. So other places where Clark Gable and his first wife, Carol Lombard, haunt is the Oatman Hotel in Oatman, Arizona. So it's a very, very old hotel. It was a hotel that was opened in the 1900s and became very famous for, you know, getaways, you know, with big stars in the 40s, but ideally in the early 1900s, it was a hotel that helped, you know, miners, you know, get a good stay, a good night's sleep, get a good meal. So Clark would go to this hotel when he needed to get away from Hollywood. So he would take Lombard with him, and they would spend long weeks and weekends in the hotel. They also spent their honeymoon at this hotel. So just a little side note too, Clark Gable was married to Carole Lombard, who was a very famous and very beautiful actress back in the 40s. Just think of like Kristen Wiig and Kirsten Bell had a baby. It was Carole Lombard.
I love it.
Because Carole Lombard, she was so gorgeous.
Yes.
She was blonde and she was hilarious. She was like known to do comedy like on the spot. Her timing was impeccable.
I love that.
So Carole Lombard dies in a plane accident.
Wow.
Coming back from Vegas to Los Angeles. And it hit Gable really, really hard. So that was his first love. That was his only love. Even his, like, the wives that he, were married to after Lombard, like, they even, like, on the record said that is the woman that they couldn't, compete with at all.
Yeah, because he had 5 marriages.
Yeah. And they were like, it all resulted in him going back to Lombard. Like, he just couldn't move on.
That's so crazy.
Guests and staff would hear a man and woman whispering and or laughing from their honeymoon suite.
No.
And they would go into the suite and it would be empty. And according to one report, when a professional photographer took a picture of the empty room, the ghostly figure of a man appeared on the developed print. Another reason why it's definitely them is the fact that the room is a time warp with a lot of the furniture and decor from that time era. There's also a wedding dress displayed in the room in that hotel that claims to, like, the owner claims that it did belong to Lombard. Wow. That was her wedding dress.
No.
I'm going to post the picture on Instagram so you guys can see the room. But there's a picture of Lombard and Gable on the wall. And then, like, the bed, the comforter, the table, like everything, the decor is a major time warp. And then you see like this little dress like hanging on, like draped over a chair.
Oh,
it's pretty interesting.
That's crazy. Oh man.
Which leads me to our final apparition, Marilyn Monroe.
Yes.
So according to creepyla.com, Marilyn Monroe's ghost has supposedly been seen in dozens of places in and around Hollywood and elsewhere. So the ghost of Marilyn Monroe is believed to haunt her old home in Los Angeles, and I posted those pictures yesterday.
Oh, so crazy.
It is scary. It is really, really insane. So the first place that she haunts is 2305 5th Helena Drive in Brentwood, California. This is her home. Shortly after midnight, August 5th in 1962, of course, Marilyn Monroe's dead body was discovered. And there were rumors that, of course, it was a murder. No, it was a suicide. But many people claim that they still see her spirit. They see her spirit roaming around the grounds. There's a picture that I posted on Instagram where you see like an apparition of what looks to be her sitting by the pool. And also people have seen a pink mist at times around the property. They've also seen a woman through the window, like walking around. And one neighbor had actually gone to the house because she thought, like so-and-so is back. Because at the time, the house was being rented to a couple. The couple was out of town. The neighbor went over there just to, kind of knock on the door and say hi. And no one was home. But she swears up and down that she saw someone like walking back and forth through the windows.
That's crazy.
That it looked like a woman.
Oh.
So, so another place that she also haunts is the Beverly Hilton on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills. So, in creepyla.com, one person, Richard Carradine, has stated, I believe the ghost of a blonde woman is spotted in the penthouse suite, and I believe it's Marilyn Monroe. So, hotel guests and staff have reported seeing this lovely apparition, which Carradine points out is where Marilyn Monroe and Senator Bob Kennedy are rumored to have, had an affair in.
Wow.
Yeah. And had been seen before her suicide. So, yeah, she did stay and have like a little bow chicka bow wow with Bobby Kennedy.
Oh, Bobby.
I know. Bobby.
Such a good guy in so many ways. And then here we are. Oh, no.
And then, of course, the Westwood Memorial Park in off of Glendon Avenue. So keeping Marilyn's remains company at the intimate Westwood Cemetery are poltergeist stars Heather O'Rourke and Dominique Dunn, both whom died at a young age as well. And not surprisingly, Marilyn's ghost has been spotted near her gravesite, possibly while floating from one gravestone to another.
Oof.
Numerous photos have been taken of her crypt, including orbs and other, weird pink mists.
No, the mist.
I know, don't go into mist.
Oh.
But whether these are of natural origin or perhaps indicating the presence of spirits other than Marilyn is up for speculation as well. So I believe that she still haunts her home and that she also haunts the Roosevelt. The Roosevelt was such a big hotel, especially during the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So it's no wonder why all these stars come back and, claim their own haunting ground, I guess you can say. So that is the paranormal aftermath of Clift,
crazy.
Monroe, and Gable.
The big three.
The big three. And all three of them are hanging out in the same freaking hotel.
Well, I think it's that thing, too, where, like, so many people know, obviously, about them. They're such monumental historical stars in the history of film. But also you kind of go bringing that energy of like, this is where Marilyn Monroe is, this is where Clark Gable is, and it's like that energy manifestation, just so crazy. Like, of course they're haunting there, like it's so ridiculous.
And other spectrals are haunting there as well. I think
we
we should spend the night there one night.
Literally never. Never.
You can contact me via Skype. I'll be sitting in the church. Is Bryce's thoughts.
Yes, like, I'm covered in holy water, thank you. Yeah,
so let's go on final thoughts.
Yes.
Like, what are your final thoughts of the Misfits? Do you think that this was a casting curse? Do you think that the movie was cursed? That the movie caused the death of these stars?
I am aware that I sounded a little bit like a broken record because I always kind of fall on like a little bit of a wishy-washy in between when it comes to this. But I think it's that, again, weird balance of the things that you can explain having ramifications that you cannot explain.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is the curse of the film, I think, stems from the extreme drug and alcohol problems, the crumbling marriage, the Arthur Miller chaos of the rewrites. All of those are very explainable kinds of things. Like, those would make anybody crazy.
I agree.
But you don't understand, again, what your actions and your words and your choices, the ripples and how far those will go. And so, I really do think, especially in the case of Clark Gable, but I think then because of that first domino falling, it just starts rippling. And like, no, do I think that this movie killed them a la The Exorcist? You know what I mean? Where it's like an actual curse? No, I don't. But I do think that the physical stress and chaos of this film had ramifications that no one was aware of. And so that the stress did kill them, and that the links and the seeming like coincidental ties between their deaths are linked through this film. I do think that. Yeah.
I agree. I really feel you on that one. I don't think that the Misfits was cursed.
No.
I think it was just hellishly, nightmarishly unlucky.
Yeah.
Overly reliant people were casted or even worked on this film who were already coming apart at the seams. And the individuals that worked on this film had a lot of internal issues. They had pure shade and drama, like you said. And that's the same tune with, 007, Rebel Without a Cause, Superman, and The Dark Knight.
Yep.
Or anything with Lindsay Lohan.
Oh, God. Herbie Fully Loaded. Why?
I know. I mean, it's Lindsay Lohan. I think the thing that's cursed about her is her peach. I just think, like... anyone who has wandered in and out of that vagine is cursed.
Yeah. You want to talk about haunted.
Like, her peach right there.
Bless.
But yeah, I mean, like, people claim that The Dark Knight was cursed because it claimed the life of Heath Ledger, and Morgan Freeman was in this horrific, like, car accident, that he almost, like, lost his life in. No, it's just that, Heath Ledger had a lot of internal problems. And he was battling with his own demons. And
that perfect storm of, like, you bring so much baggage to a negative situation and it just compounds.
Yeah. And it's eerie that, he was married to Michelle Williams.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Who portrayed Marilyn Monroe in a movie. So
it's just Marilyn, yeah.
Yeah. it's kind
tiny little baby Eddie Redmayne.
I know.
He's so young in that movie. It's
so
crazy.
Adorable. But then again, yeah, like you said, however, you do have these other films that involve paranormal and the occult.
Yep.
Like in some way, they seem to invite these supernatural entities on set. So, hell, like they gave him their own trailer. Like we see this in The Omen, Rosemary's Baby, The Poltergeist, The Conjuring. That set was fucking haunted. The Exorcist and the Amityville Horror. You even had, recorded reports and witness accounts of unexplained things happening on these types of sets, but nothing was happening on the set of The Misfits.
Yeah, I think so. It is, again, it may be a little bit of splitting hairs, but I think there's a difference between being unlucky, like you said, that's like the perfect word for it, and actually cursed. And I think this film was just very unlucky.
So there you have it. Our final thoughts is that this film was just unlucky.
Yeah.
But there are other films out there that we're going to do an episode on in the future of haunted film sets.
Yes.
Trust me, I've worked on so many haunted film sets, guys. I have stories you would not believe, because the production company I work for here, they're all solely horror based. Ugh. And every freaking location they take us, it's haunted. And they know it. And they know it. They're like, they even said, I'm not kidding. Like every time they tell me like the location, the first question I ask, is it haunted? And they're like, yeah.
Oh my God. That was too much.
Can we just let the cat out of the bag? Just like, is it haunted? Yeah. How haunted?
Yeah, I was saying, haunted?
And we already have a scale, like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being most haunted. What do you think? Like 7.5?
No. Oh my God, no.
The last film I worked on was, we're on 2 haunted locations. We were in a haunted village in Los Angeles.
A whole village?
So it's called Heritage Square. And it's a village of adopted Victorian homes that the LA Conservationist Society salvaged that were, ready for demolition. They're like, what the fuck are you doing? These homes are beautiful. So they actually had moved these homes to a specific spot by Pasadena. And they are like weird juju. Really weird stuff would happen on set. People would feel things, see things. I felt things. Yeah, that's another podcast.
Yeah, it really is. I just feel like the sentence, though, adopted Victorian home, is just asking to be haunted.
Oh, yeah.
No.
It was crazy. And there are times where people are like, hey, did you move that? Or did you touch me? No. It was those things. Yeah.
Oh, God. No, I didn't. I'm in the taxi leaving the set. Like, no, bye.
My love came, bye.
Bye. Yeah. Oh, my God. That's crazy.
Yes. All right, guys. So shall we take it to a close? Let's do it. But before we take it to a close, we have some spiritual bays that we definitely want to do some shout outs on. First off is Christian and Damon's amazing nerd show. For nerds, by nerds, which I don't mind because I'm kind of married to a nerd.
I'm a huge nerd. So it's
you
great.
Are.
I really am.
You're such a hot nerd.
Thank you.
You're so hot.
I really did it.
I know. So Christian and Damon's amazing nerd show hits with topics covering all nerd culture. So if you like comic books, wrestling, and films, this is the podcast for you. I do like to listen to their podcast because they do great movie reviews. They did a wonderful movie review on Black Panther and The Shape of Water.
Yes.
I love tuning in for that portion of their episodes because I'm not really big into comic books. Unless it's The Walking Dead, I'm really big into that.
Love it.
So Heebie-Jeebie Babes is our second Bays of the Week. They're a horror podcast, and these gals tell tales of horror and anything else that gives you the heebie-jeebies. And they're also babes. So they also fangirl hard on Guillermo del Toro. They're big Guillermo del Toro fans, and they're also Southern gals. They're based out of Georgia.
Cool.
They're amazing. I love listening to them because I feel like, these are my people. They're from the South. I'm from New Orleans. We get each other. Get it, yeah. And another shout out to, I want to give a congratulations to Emily from Lights Out, Frights Out.
Yes.
Frights Out, Lights Out. Sorry if I messed that up. Sorry. But Emily is expecting a baby. I know.
I literally was like, what is she expecting? Oh, right. A baby. Okay, right. Those are things.
Not a baby burrito.
Yeah. Oh, God. I'm expecting that every day.
I know. God, I want Chipotle now. Oh, but she and her husband are going to be expecting
cute.
a baby soon, and it's adorable.
A little mini horror baby.
I know. I just sent them a message on Twitter. I was like, we just feel that this child's going to grow up to be the next Stephen King.
Yeah.
Or Mary Shelley from All. Yes. Because they are always like sharing these scary stories, and you're like, hey, we think it's going to be a serial killer.
Yeah, it's going to be like on its tiny little wooden rocking horse. Like, Mother, I'm ready for my bathing time now. No.
Baby Stewie, no.
Cute.
But congratulations to Emily, girl. That's amazing.
Yay.
And we wish you all the luck with that pregnancy, woman. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. As another little side note, don't forget to subscribe and rate us and review us on our iTunes. It really does help us a lot. It helped us indie podcasters become a little more visible. But I've seen you guys rate and review. Thank you so much for that. And we'll be coming back to you in 2 weeks because I really want to do something big. You want to hear it?
Yes. This is live surprises.
Live surprise. All right. I've been wanting to do this because I've been a fan of these guys for a very long time. I want to do the true crime and paranormal aftermath, drum roll, of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls. Yes. Baby.
I mean, I think I'm probably a little too white to do it justice, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try really hard because I'm obsessed.
I am half Hispanic, half Lebanese. I'm a Lebanese senorita, but I still love me some Tupac Shakur and Biggie Small. I love me my West Coast and East Coast rap.
It's so juicy and delicious. I can't wait for the TV special. I love the documentary. I'm obsessed with the entire story.
You're not that white. You said juicy.
Oh, right.
Juicy.
I'm like
it was Biggie Small's big song.
Yeah. Blessed. Look at me.
You know who you
so
are.
Hardcore.
So, guys, we'll be doing that. I want to say in 2 weeks, I'm going to give us a break so we can really do some research, clarify our minds a little more.
Listen to all the songs.
I don't have to listen to it. They're already in my
I love it.
I'm always jamming out to Tupac and Biggie. So, all right, guys, much love. We'll catch you soon.
Yay. Bye.
And stay weird. Bye.
Bye.